The Johnson family always prided themselves on their elaborate holiday traditions. Among them, the worn elf doll perched on the mantel each December held a peculiar kind of charm. Sophie, their youngest, insisted the elf watched her at night, a notion her parents dismissed as the whimsy of a 7-year-old. But when they found the elf moved to the kitchen counter one morning, its plastic hand resting on a pile of spilled sugar, a faint unease crept in. No one admitted to touching it. The parents, amused but uneasy, chalked it up to forgetfulness or the cat's mischief, yet the figure's hollow, painted eyes seemed more inscrutable than ever. 3 nights later, Jason, their eldest, awoke to a sharp thud near his bedroom door. Dismissing it as an accident, he turned over in bed, only to catch sight of something small and pale, nudged just inside the doorway. It was the elf, tipped slightly forward, as though peering at him. He froze, logic battling with the quickening pound of his heart. In the morning, he accused Sophie of trying to scare him, but her protests were genuine, her tiny face unreadable. By dinner time, the family sat in a silence that felt heavier than it should have, each unwilling to admit how the air in the house had subtly shifted, how every shadow now carried the weight of uncertainty. By the next week, the doll's movements became more brazen. The father found it sitting impossibly upright on his desk in the study, an untouched space they rarely even entered. The mother spotted it in the laundry room, perched precariously on the edge of a shelf. Sophie swore she felt its eyes trailing her as she ran down the hall in the dim afternoon light. The fear became unspoken, but shared, an anxious dance around the threshold of disbelief. They locked the elf in the linen closet one evening, desperate for respite. Hours later, the sound of something skittering down the stairs roused them from their beds. There it was again, seated tidily on the coffee table, its position eerily deliberate, its gaze now fixed towards the family portrait on the wall. That night, the father finally took matters into his own hands. He threw the elf into the fire pit in the backyard, watching the plastic blister and char in the flames, feeling a strange mix of guilt and relief. The next morning, the soot-streaked remains were gone, but the family tried to convince themselves it was over. Their unease burned away with the doll. Yet, as snow blanketed the house that evening, Sophie opened her bedroom door to find it placed neatly on her pillow, its melted face contorted into a grotesque imitation of a smile. Her scream stirred the family into motion, but when they rushed in, the figure was gone. From then on, the family stopped speaking of what haunted their home, stopped celebrating Christmas altogether. All that remained was the overwhelming certainty, the kind they carried with them even after moving away, that something had watched them. And perhaps it still did.